What is going on, guys? MMA Island team. We got the fight picks. We got a very interesting one. I've said that for most of the fights on the card so far, but it's kind of true, and it's really true in this one because we got Maki Bombz Pitolo taking on Impa Kasanganay. Coming off a Dana White Contender Series. I think this fight was announced like 10 minutes after this fight. So I think Maki Pitolo was just ready to take on the winner of the fight there. And man, Maki Pitolo, I picked him to win his last fight going up against Darren Stewart. And he gets choked out by a guillotine choke in the first round. And that happened to be Darren Stewart's first submission win. So it's kind of crazy, but I will pass it on to Zach.
If you know me, you know that Maki Pitolo is my absolute favorite fade in the entire UFC. I love to pick against this guy. And man, oh man, if you watch the Contender Series like I did, you know Impa Kasanganay. This guy is a beast. You look at this guy, impressive physique. But then you look at his fight in the Contender Series with Anthony Sugarfoot Adams. It's a close first round, Sugarfoot, Anthony Adams takes the round, and then in the second and third rounds, Kasanganay takes control. So he has very good cardio. That's another thing to mention about him, is insane cardio. And he even 10-8s him in the third. And the one thing about Kasanganay is he has amazing movement for a guy of his size. His footwork is absolutely elite. And he likes to fight with a very forward pressuring bully style and using his physicality to just kind of overpower his opponents and break them to his will. That's exactly what he did to Adams. It's a rolling snowball kind of effect. That's what I say always when Max Holloway fights. But the more you get into a fight with Impa Kasanganay, the more trouble you are in. And this guy has not lost yet. And this is a very quick turnaround for him. But the difference between him and Pitolo here is this is a quick turnaround coming off of a win. Pitolo's turnaround is coming off of a loss. And you may ask, why out of all fighters is Maki Pitolo your favorite fade in the UFC? It's because he's one of the most one-dimensional guys that I've ever seen. He has rode so far off of power alone. He doesn't have very good striking technique. He gets battered around by people with any semblance of technique. Just look at Callum Potter in his first fight in the UFC, just gets absolutely demolished. And he was losing to Charles Byrd before he got that knockout. And I will not discount Maki Pitolo's power. And Impa Kasanganay did show a little bit of defensive flaws against Anthony Adams in the Contender Series, but this is way too soon to return for Pitolo. I mentioned that for the last one with Hannah Cifers, but this is way too soon. And you got finished in the first. I mean, yes, it's a submission and not a knockout, but still, this is not, especially against an undefeated prospect like this in Impa Kasanganay, this is not the guy you want to return against after getting choked out. Because, okay, Kasanganay has the movement advantage. He can just dart in left, right, fire shots off on Pitolo. Pitolo doesn't know what to do. And if this fight goes to the ground, Kasanganay has the advantage as well. If Pitolo doesn't get a knockout, he doesn't win. And that is the case in every single Maki Pitolo fight. That's why I love to fade him. And that's why I'm picking Impa Kasanganay.
Fair enough. I've went with Maki Pitolo in the Darren Stewart fight, the Charles Byrd fight. But I will be going against him on this one. I'm going to be going with Kasanganay on this one. As you mentioned, the first thing I got to talk about with this one is I get it. It's different if you get knocked out in the first round, but getting subbed in the first round, especially by a guy who has never had a submission victory ever, you got to take a moment to kind of ask yourself, did I not train correctly for this one? What did I do wrong here? I'm no person to be judging Maki Pitolo's decision-making, but me personally, when I look at this fight and I'm picking who I want, looking at a guy who not only is coming off of a loss this month, he's also coming up against a guy who's never lost. I typically hold the undefeated fighters in very high regard, and I'm going to have to say the same here with Kasanganay just because, man, we saw his fight. And I think the first thing people notice when they look at Kasanganay, they say, oh, he has 5 decisions, so he's pretty well got decision or bust. But, man, looking at his amateur fights, he's got 3 straight KOs in the first round. And I understand it's amateur fights, but keep in mind, these are 2 years ago. Sure, you could say the not the greatest of competition, but clearly he has power. Clearly he has a submission game as well. We've seen it as well in last year. This dude has just been very, very active. So clearly, I think if you're going to talk about what this plays on the fighter's mind by taking a fight so quickly, you really have to talk about Maki Pitolo because Maki Pitolo is coming off a loss. Um, I just think that Kasanganay is going to be able to outpoint him. You mentioned he's got the footwork advantage. I have to agree with you there. I just think that he's going to be able to piece his way to a victory here. Maki Pitolo. You mentioned I don't technically agree with what you're saying about how he has to get a knockout. At least recently, I could definitely see that. But I just think that this fight is probably going to go to decision, not just because of what we've seen from Kasanganay, but I just think that these two dudes match up very well. I think they're probably both going to want to keep it standing. You mentioned if Kasanganay takes it down, he's going to get a submission victory. I would probably agree with that. I just don't think that I think these two dudes are kind of running off the jitters, I guess you could call it, and are kind of saying, "Oh, I just want to fight. Let's just get right into it." They're just going to want to fight. They're just going to go and strike at each other, and I think they're going to piece each other up. And I think it's going to be a pretty good fight to watch, and it's going to be a welcome to the UFC moment for Kasanganay. But I think he'll get a decision victory in this one. Not the craziest amount of confidence, just because we haven't really seen Kasanganay against the higher rated opponents. And I guess you could say Darren Stewart's one of the higher rated opponents in the UFC. Been a fan of him for a while, and he's got a crazy fight coming up next month against Kevin Holland, which is just absolutely fire fight. Um, let's pray it stays together, because as we know in this time, it's kind of hard for fights to stay together. But we got this fight. Very, very interesting fight. So I'm going to be going with Kasanganay. Zach's going to be going with Kasanganay. We want to know who you guys got. So if you guys got Maki Pitolo in this one, hey, man, let us know in the comments. And if you guys agree with us, also let us know in the comments. But most of all, make sure you guys also check out the other Fight Pick videos.